Hi, I'm Dr. Patrick Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And I want to talk a little bit about Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton, what an extraordinarily brilliant man. He discovered and explained and codified the laws of motion, the laws of classical mechanics, which are basically the foundational principles of the entire science of physics, right? He discovered and described universal gravity, the theory of universal gravitation, which is that all matter in the universe has a gravitational force on all other matter in the universe, and then went on to use that understanding to explain and predict the movement of planets and moons and comets and everything. And it was a little tricky to explain all that, and so didn't really have exactly the tools that were ideal for explaining those kinds of forces and movements and predictions. And so he went ahead and invented an entirely new system of mathematics called calculus, right? And then, as if that wasn't enough, he went on to make some really enormous breakthroughs in optics and the understanding of light and the refraction of light, basically invented the reflective telescope, and was also the father of modern experimental method and theory. In other words, he's the guy that sort of codified and established, if you're going to do an experiment to prove something, to answer a question, there's some things you ought to do to make sure the answer you get has anything to do with the question you're asking, right? And that method, that scientific experimental method, is still used by researchers now. That's how we do research, right? And so, how does a guy like that, who's so brilliant and so accomplished, more accomplishment in his career than practically anybody for millennia before him, and frankly, for millennia after him, really an astounding discoverer of truth and understander of truth. How did he feel about himself? Well, this is what he said. I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore and diverting myself in now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. He also said this: gravity explains the motion of planets, but it cannot explain who set the planets in motion. God governs all things and knows all that is or can be done. So I think that for as brilliant and accomplished a scholar and researcher and scientist as he was, he had extraordinary humility. And I think it's that humility that was the key to his enormous success. I think there's a tendency among humans that when they know something, they think they know everything, and that the things they know are vastly more important and more legitimate than the things they don't know. And that's unfortunate. It's sort of an arrogance that anybody can be exposed to and experience, that we think that the things that we understand are the only things that matter, and that it gives us some sort of expertise and some sort of authority to speak on the subject, because I understand A and B, and even though I don't know anything about from C to Z, I'm still a guy, And Newton didn't feel that way. I have a brother who's a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon, okay, extraordinarily accomplished guy, published researcher, also does surgery all day, every day. He discovered pain pathways that modern medicine didn't even know existed. He discovered pain pathways related to phantom pain that make it so that your foot still hurts 10 years after you lost your leg, right? Pathways nobody even knew about. and surgery is about what to do about that, you know. So really a very accomplished guy, a very empirical guy, very analytical mind, very scientific mind, right? And he started exploring acupuncture, started studying acupuncture, and started using it to relieve pain in some of his patients that were coming to a neurosurgeon to fix pain that nobody else was able to fix. And, I had to kind of razz him a little bit because I'm the funky herb guy and he's the brain surgeon, I'm the scientific guy. And I says to him one day, I says, so Mark, how does that acupuncture stuff work, right? And he says to me, I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's endorphins or chi or little green goblins, but I can measure that it works. And that answer was glorious. I mean, that is exactly where we need to be as learners, right? Science is fantastic. A fact is a fact, and that's great, but we have to also have a reverence and a respect for history. I mean, people have been doing acupuncture for 4,000 years, maybe more? People have been doing herbal medicine for as long as people have been poking plants in their mouth. How long is that? That's a long time, right? And getting results. And we also have to have respect for those results. And so science is becoming more and more interested in herbal medicine and botanical phytochemistry, right? They don't call it herbal medicine. That's a step too far into the fringe. But they call it, it's phytochemistry, it's biochemistry, it's physiology. And they're studying plants and the chemistry of plants on a very focused, narrow level, that this chemical is doing this to this receptor on this cell membrane, and they're finding extraordinary stuff. And I applaud that. I think it's fantastic that science is getting so passionate about the great sea of undiscovered knowledge that lies before them. That's what science is all about. For a real scientist, for a real Isaac Newton brain, that's what it's all about. And a good scientist or a good healer or a good physician or a good, anybody who wants to do good in the world has to have a mind that's open to things they don't understand. Isaac Newton, I don't know if it's true, but the story is that he was sitting under the apple tree and the apple conked him on his head, right? And he didn't understand that. And he got wondering about it, and nobody else understood it, right? But he got thinking about it, and thinking more about it, and thinking more about it, and the next thing you know, he's able to get a pencil and scribble out some math equations in a system of mathematics he invented for the purpose, and tell you exactly where that comet's going to be 14 years from now, because it has to pass this planet, and it'll get pulled over a little bit by that one, and pulled over a little bit by that one, because of the gravitational force, and the gravitational force of this one will be a lot, because it's a big planet, and it'll be this number exactly, because it's a big planet, right? And he was able to do extraordinary things because he was willing to explore something he knew nothing about and nobody else knew anything about. And that's what science is doing with botanical medicine. And that's what herbalists, hopefully, if you're doing it right, are also doing with botanical medicine. And hopefully, we can do both. There's sort of a turf war between modern medicine and traditional medicine. And there's this tendency to say, oh, well, modern medicine's bad because of this and this and this. And the other guys are on the other side and they're like saying herbalism is ridiculous because of this and this and this. But the fact is, humans have been using herbal medicine successfully for thousands and thousands of years. And people aren't stupid. If something doesn't work, they quit doing it. Even the medical profession has quit doing a lot of things. They're not doing mercury anymore. They're not doing bleeding anymore. They're not doing leeches anymore, Well, they're doing leeches a little bit. If a Hollywood starlet gets a bruise, they'll put a leech on her to suck the bruise out before her big movie shoot. So leeches are still okay. And if you have polycythemia, they still bleed you, but that's it. Otherwise, they're not using any of those things because they didn't work, right? And mercury never worked for anything. And so they abandon stuff. They explore, they test, they try things, they abandon things that don't work. Well, that's what humans have been doing forever. And herbal medicine's still here. Okay, so that ought to tell you something, number one. Number two, when you have cultures all over the planet using the same plant for the same issue, that ought to bring up some questions. And modern medicine's doing that. Modern research is doing that. And that's great. I celebrate that. And as herbalists, we can do the same thing. We can look at research and we can say, holy cow, if that plant is affecting that receptor, and that receptor is related to this issue or that issue, how come I don't use that herb for that issue? And we try it and we explore and we experiment, and sure enough, it works. That's how we have to be. We have to be willing to learn. And one of the funnest things and one of the most rewarding things to me as a student of herbal medicine is to be that boy on the seashore. And every time I learn about a new amazing thing that a plant can do, a new amazing property, a new amazing chemical, a new amazing historical anecdote, that the Incas were doing this with it, every time I discover some new thing, I have the shiny pebble, I have the pretty shell, and I'm all excited, and I look down and there's another one, and another one, and another, and another, and it just goes on forever. These plants are so complex and so glorious and so amazing, that there really is a sea of knowledge undiscovered lying before us. And I hope that we'll embrace it, and I hope that we'll continue to have that curiosity and that innocence and that humility to say, I don't know nothing. Because if Isaac Newton can do it, we can probably do it too. If Isaac Newton can say, I'm a kid on the beach looking at shiny rocks, maybe we ought to all be thinking of it a little bit more that way. So I'm Dr. Patrick Jones. If you'd like to learn more about herbal medicine, about how you can help people, about what this weed can do or that flower or that root to solve problems in ways that have been used for thousands of years, or if you'd also like to learn some of the science behind it, what's the body doing? How does the body work? How come that plant does that to your kidney, right? We cover those kinds of topics in the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And we would love to have you join us. I'd love to join you on that journey. And we can stroll the beach together and find some wonderful stuff. I do have to say, by way of credentials, as an herb teacher, that Isaac Newton and I are first cousins. Yeah, we're first cousins, like 9 times removed. First cousins 9 times removed. But that's still pretty good. Okay, and so I probably have a little more credential to help you to know what weeds to slap on your knee if you skin your knee because you had an altercation with gravity and a moving planet. All right, not every herbalist can say that. Okay, so anyway, I'm Doc Jones, Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. I hope that you'll learn about herbs. I'm tickled to death you're watching this video. If you like it, click the little buttons and subscribe, and we'll tell you when we're doing another one. If you think other people would benefit from the content, share the information. Swing by homegrownherbalist.com and have a look at our offerings. We have information about the school there. And of course, we have herbs and videos and blog articles and lots of other fun stuff. Anyway, I'm Doc Jones. Thanks for listening.